We welcome you to the Rhein Center for our Conversations and Coffee program on this 22nd day of the month of January. I'm Ellen O'Shaughnessy, coordinator of the program. Conversations and Coffee is grateful to be at our home away from home, the Rhein Center, while our beloved Cultural Arts Center is being renovated. We're grateful to Kyle Farnbach and faculty and staff here for welcoming us. And we're grateful to Fran Ryan for her leadership in our city in multiple ways through services and programs. And thank you to our gathered audience for being with us today to celebrate our artist, Matthew Rhein, photographer. Matthew, you want to stand up there? Yay. We've been gifted by Matthew as a member of our staff of the Priscilla R. Tyson Cultural Arts Center since August of 2025 as the Recreation Program Specialist. And indeed, he is wonderful. Matthew, thank you for sharing your gift and love for photography with us today and sharing your expertise of how to make better photographs of your art. Matthew was born and raised in Reading, Pennsylvania, and his love for photography started in high school when he first took a black and white photography class. It was there, he shares, that he developed an affinity for telling stories with words and pictures. Upon graduating from high school, Matthew spent 2 years pursuing a bachelor's degree in journalism at Kutztown University before moving to Philadelphia, transferring to a new school and changing majors to photojournalism. After college, Matthew began freelancing for editorial and commercial clients, while also managing a photography rental studio and building his personal wedding and portrait brand. It was in Philadelphia where Matthew met and married his wife of 13 years, Simone. Matthew and Simone started their family, which now includes 3 children, Charlie, Spencer, and Josephina, and a dog named Benson. Matthew, so wonderful that you're with us today, sharing your talent and love for photography, and so great to work with you. Likewise. Take it away.
Thank you, Ellen.
You're welcome. Thank you. Got everything here? Yeah.
I think so. Thank you so much, Ellen. It's a pleasure to work with you as well, and it's wonderful to be here with all of you today to get to talk about something that I absolutely love to do, which is taking pictures and sharing my love of taking pictures with anyone who's willing to listen. Well, we'll get right into it. The title of our presentation is How to Take Better Photos of Your Art by Looking at a Lot of Bad Photos. Just keep in mind I took all of the photos, good or bad, however you perceive them, so I haven't infringed on anyone's copyright, but hopefully by the end of this we will have a few ideas of how to take better photos of your art. Please keep in mind, I've photographed a lot of food and products and things and some art in there, but I think the strategies that help you be successful are similar and able to be transferred depending on what you're photographing. So who the heck am I? I'm Matthew Rhein, as previously stated. I've lived in Pennsylvania and California and Ohio, and I'm here by way of California. I've lived here with my family since 2019. And time just goes by so quickly, and it's wonderful. Prior to that, I lived in Berkeley, California for about 1.5 years. And before that, grew up and studied and ran a photography business in Pennsylvania. We've been taking pictures since I've been a teenager, about 15 years old. I say I've been a professional photographer for 15 years because it doesn't sound like I'm that old if I just say 15 years, but it's probably closer to 20 to 25. But I'm going to keep it at 15 so that I don't feel like I'm getting older. I've photographed hundreds of weddings and commercial assignments, which are people, places, and things, and editorial assignments, which would be for publications like newspapers or magazines. Again, usually people, places, and things. And I say I've photographed everything under the sun. I've had the philosophy of, hey, Matt, do you photograph this? And yes, we do. Even if we don't, we'll figure out how to do it. And that versatility has really helped me to improve taking pictures under any conditions of any subject, no matter where we are. Because as a professional photographer, that's your job, is to take good pictures no matter what. So hopefully some of that comes out in this presentation today. And as of August 20th last year, I've been the Recreation Program Specialist for the Columbus Cultural Arts Center, as Ellen said. It's a fantastic job where I get to help other people access and make art. So other than doing it myself, helping everyone else or anyone else access and make art is the most rewarding part of this job. So again, grateful to be here and grateful to have that job because I'm here for it. So how do you take better photos? By taking a lot of bad photos, by learning what not to do, by looking at a lot of bad photos, by practicing. I put this photo up here. This was my first paid commercial assignment. Might look like a very happy family, and it might be a pretty good family photo, but the photo was really for this juice brand, which they're holding in their hand, and then I lined up 7 of them along with a bunch of fresh vegetables. It's kind of a hard photo to read. You don't really know what it's about. Just looks like a happy family. So I would change a lot of the things that I did had I have this assignment today. For instance, that entire sky back there was made in Photoshop. The background on this photo was blown out to the point where you couldn't see any detail, so I had to recreate clouds and a sky in Photoshop. So there's a lot of things that I would change about this image if I was with the understanding of I'm trying to sell juice. So we look at a lot of bad photos to help us figure out what makes a good photo. And there are certain things that make good photos. What makes a good photo? Dogs. Dogs make great photos. Dogs make every photo better. There's never been a bad photo taken of a dog. If you're ever wondering if you take good photos, take a picture of a dog and you will have taken a good photo. Dogs make great photos. This is not my dog, but this looks very similar to my dog. I forget this dog's name. I've taken this picture 15 plus years ago. But my dog is Benson. He's a Bernedoodle. So he's part Bernese Mountain Dog and part Poodle. So he looks like this. So anyways, dogs, great photos. 4 other things that I think make good photographs are the lighting, the composition, the focus, and the balance of color or the tonal balance if you're shooting in black and white. And we'll talk more about this. Good lighting is easier than you think. Good lighting in photographs will accentuate the form and show detail. There are ways to light your subject, which is called high key, which would be a lot of light on the subject with minimal to no shadows, so that you really do show off the form of an object. And I try to shoot with a soft or diffused light when I'm photographing art so that there aren't harsh shadows and that it evenly lights our subject. The softer the light, the more even it is on the entire subject. So just looking at this watch, the light source was meant to show the form and just different angles. And yes, there are some shadows, but that contrast does help to kind of create the form here a little bit. So anything I'm telling you can be changed based upon what you want to do. So, you learn some rules so that you can kind of bend them a little bit. So these are just some examples of photos that I took that I think have good lighting that shows form. That one in the center here, this water bottle, you have lights on both sides, just kind of accentuating the length of that bottle and the texture on the cap and the surface of itself. The box on the side here, where every item is sort of clearly seen and the shape of the box itself is seen. And then the photo on the left, where we have different objects of different color and size and reflectivity, things like a mason jar cap or a shot shaker there versus a cardboard box are going to have different ways of being represented in a photograph. So good lighting shows every aspect of the photo with equal representation. So if you're thinking about taking photos of your jewelry or something that you've maybe made of sculpture or painting, you want to make sure that the lighting shows all the best parts of your pieces of art, or the parts that you want to accentuate. And there are challenges with photographing different objects, like glass objects, especially glass objects with writing on them, or glass objects when we're trying to show the form. One of the challenges when photographing glass on a white backdrop is seeing the edges of things. And there are ways to help manipulate the light and your photograph to help accentuate that form. Another challenge is a white object on a white backdrop. But what I like about that photograph is that there's nothing competing for your attention, right? A white backdrop is like a blank canvas. You get to create what's on there, and you choose what the viewer is going to see. So there's nothing distracting you from the box or from the jar or from the glasses. And that will get into composition, but it's also good lighting that helps to show that form. So as far as controlling the light, it's very important to do that. And some of the things that you see in these photographs are kind of behind the scenes, but there's some of the things that I do to control the light. The photograph on the left is of a little box of chocolates, maple bourbon chocolates, delicious. And they're in a plastic box, and I wanted to show the edges of that box, the texture or color of those maple bourbon chocolates, but they were the box was sort of disappearing on that white backdrop. So you see that I have black cards all surrounding it. And what that's doing is blocking the light, and it's creating shadows along the edge of that object. So while there is light from my flash or light in the room that's illuminating the object, there is also black cards that are reflecting shadow onto the object to help create the edge. And we will see the finished product of that and what that looks like. In the center, we have a watch on a piece of black plexiglass, which is why there's a reflection underneath. It helps to create a very unique and dynamic image. The background is another one of those cards that was intentionally left in the shot to just sort of add some angles and interest, but also does that exact same technique where we're adding some shadow against those bright lights, which helps to create contrast and form. And similarly, this is a greeting card, which is just like a white postcard on a white backdrop. But in order to see the difference of where the card ends and the backdrop begins, that bit of shadow around, I put these black cards all around that object to sort of help create those shadows while still letting it be illuminated. When I was in school, we would call this reductive fill or negative fill. A lot of times when you're photographing an object and you want to add more light into it, you can add a bright reflector, or and I'll show you what some of those are in the shot, that reflect light back onto your subject. In this sense, we're reflecting shadows back onto our subject on purpose. So these are some objects which can often have a lot of reflections in them. Metalwork, jewelry, and I know these are a lot of things that we make here and at the Cultural Arts Center. And when photographing them, when it comes to lighting, you want to pay attention to the reflections. You want to pay attention to see if there's good reflections or bad reflections. And what I mean by that is, what do you see being reflected? Is it something you want there? Is it the light source? Is it an object in the background that we don't want to see? So just paying attention to the direction that your light is hitting your subject and the direction that you're viewing your object when you're photographing it, and just making sure that you're mindful of reflections and that they are giving you the values or the representation that you want. These two types of objects can be very challenging to photograph, but that big and soft diffused light helps to limit shadows, and white backdrops, as we'll learn, helps to keep things very simple and focus it just on the art. So good lighting with pro gear might look like something like this. I have a DSLR camera attached to a very specific mount, which allows it to be directly overhead. I have a white seamless backdrop. I have a giant soft box, which is a big indoor window. There's a light inside, the lights that you see from our TV crew, but it's inside of a giant box with a big piece of transparent material on the front, which just helps to spread the light out. So imagine putting a lampshade on top of a lamp and then taking the lampshade off. That lampshade is doing exactly what this box back here is. It's spreading the light out and softening it. If you took the lampshade off, the light would be more harsh and direct, and we would see very defined shadows. So in this shot itself, I have white reflectors, which is adding light into the scene, and I have dark reflectors, which is adding some shadow to help create the edge on that object. One of the other things that all of this white is doing is helping limit the reflections. So if there is a reflective nature to your subject, having a white box in which you shoot means that most of your reflections will just be white reflecting back on there. So it will just help to accentuate the form rather than be reflecting back something undesirable in the background. So with pro gear, you're going to have things that are strobes or flashes. So rather than lights that are on all the time, like we have in our room, these would be lights that give off a instantaneous, very short burst of very bright light. You've probably seen flashes on many cameras in your life, but the ones we have here are larger and much more controlled. You have constant lights, if that's what you have available to you. There are great light kits you can find at any photography store or online, on Amazon, or any online photo retailer that you can buy constant lights. They're much more affordable than strobes and much more accessible. You don't need to attach them to your camera in any way. You don't have any trouble with, does your camera agree with this light and will they talk to each other and operate properly? Constant lights, much like these in the room, just work. And you can set them up where you want and light your subject however you like. I do recommend diffusing your light, making it softer. Indirect light, meaning rather than shining directly at your subject, you could reflect it off of something else and shine it onto your subject. That helps to soften shadows and make the objects just look more appealing. White seamless is one of my biggest recommendations. It's expensive, it's cumbersome, but if you're going to do this for any length of time with any amount of desire and seriousness, it might be something you want to invest in because you'll get very consistent results. And reflectors. They don't have to be expensive. You can spend a lot of money on reflectors, just like you can spend a lot of money on paintbrushes. But they can also be a $1.50 piece of foam board from Walmart. Most of mine are.
Shall we take a moment to see if anyone has any questions?
Yeah, thank you. I can just talk about this forever. Does anyone have any questions?
It's amazing. To follow it is a challenge, but you can see. My husband and I were taking photos of our Christmas tree that we're going to be taking down. We must have taken 10 just to begin to get the spirit of that tree that's been with us for the holidays.
Oh, sure.
And it was very hard to do, turning down the chandelier, and as you're talking, what I would do would be putting it before you and saying, what will you do with our chandelier lights? But one of those photos, after many, satisfied us.
That's all it takes. It only takes one photo.
Oh, even after about 15.
To get to one you like. That's if you look at old contact sheets, of 35 millimeter film, you take 36 or 24 shots and you might be happy with a few of them. Now in our digital age, you take hundreds or thousands of shots and you're happy with a handful of them. But in your specific example, I would assume that one of the challenges was something I'll talk about today is mixing light sources.
Yes.
All of the different lights in our life have different colors to them, whether our eye distinguishes them or not. Our human eye is very good at adjusting automatically. Cameras and computers are not. We have to sort of tell them how to adjust for the color of light. So if you've never recognized this before. Hopefully after today you will look at light differently and just see the different colors of them. But if you just think about the fluorescent lights in this room, there's a certain greenish yellow tint to them versus your daylight, which typically is a little bit bluer. And you've noticed the sunset and the sunrises where it's nice and orange and warm. And you've noticed like old light bulbs, if you go up into an attic or you have old-fashioned light bulbs with the wire filament in there, they're incandescent. They tend to be more orange or warmer. So when we think about the color of light, it tends to lean either cooler in the blues and greens or in the warmer towards the oranges and yellows. And what we want to achieve in photographing our art is just a consistent light source. So whatever light source you have, just be consistent with it and try not to mix it. Meaning, if you're photographing something in front of your window, turn off the lights in your house. Turn off the lights in your room so that there's not incandescent or tungsten light and daylight competing with each other, because your camera will get confused and it won't know which color to best represent. If you don't have any windows in your house, I'm so sorry, and just use whatever light bulb you have there, and then don't add a different color of light to it, and we'll see that. Just to get through this photograph, what I'm looking at here is very indirect light. So this light source is pointed at my subject, so it's direct, but it's inside of a big softbox, so it's diffused. These lights are not pointed at my subject, they're pointed away from them, so they're indirectly lighting them up. So this light will point here, bounce into this big wall, and bounce back. So that's an indirect light source, which adds very soft light to your subject, which can be very flattering. Yes?
Flares off the light on the camera.
A lot of times, light at that angle can add a flare in the camera, so you have to be very mindful of that. That's an excellent point of something to be mindful of. Sometimes, and you can sort of see it here, there's a little bit of a hood on my lens, which is kind of like putting an umbrella in front of your lens just to block the light at that angle so there's no glares. Yes?
I was wondering how, like for commercials and stuff, how do you make that like commercial look really good and stuff?
Thank you. That's a great question too. I listened to what... Absolutely. I think you were asking, how do you make commercial photographs of a good quality and make them look sharp and good and well polished? And the first thing I do is talk to the person who's asking me to make that photo and ask them to show me an example of what they're looking for, or try to describe in great detail what they'd like to achieve with these photos. Is it about showing the texture of a fuzzy jacket? Is it about showing the beauty of a pair of earrings? Is it about showing how big this new barn is that somebody built? So I listen to their needs, and then I think about how best to approach it. How would I light it to show off those objects? How would I compose the image to make sure all of the things that that client is asking for is included? And then I try about 10 different things. If I photograph something from one perspective, I'll walk around it 360 degrees and try to photograph it a bunch of other times to see what the best angle is, or to see if there's another point of view that I'm not seeing. Because oftentimes, where I'm standing, what I'm seeing is just one point of view, and it's not the most creative because I haven't had to move or work to make it different. So something I would do, and I like to do a lot with objects, is photograph it from many different angles so that I can find the most appealing point of view of that. Now, if you're photographing a painting, likely the front of that is the most appealing angle. The back of it's probably not. So keep that in mind. Yes?
What's those things on the side of it?
This right here? Yeah. This is a strobe or a flash, a light that goes off in a split second that adds light to the scene. So it's like a photography flash. Did you have a question, miss?
Yeah. Do you go with like your actual photograph, or how much do you change that in your editing process?
Perfect question. So it depends on if there was something that I need to fix, or if I'm just sort of making adjustments. So I would say most photographers' rule of thumb is get it as perfect as you can in camera, but if there are things you have to fix afterwards, you can do that. There are heavy lifts and light lifts. If I would never give an image like this to a client. There's just a lot going on, and you're, seeing a lot of things you don't want to see. I'll show you an image that has a little bit of stuff in there that I easily could Photoshop out with, something like a clone tool where you're just covering something up. I've had objects where you've photographed a bag of chips and there's a lot of wrinkles in it, and you could spend hours in Photoshop trying to make that look better, or you could just take the photo again. I try to spend as little time as possible in editing softwares and get it as right as I possibly can in the camera, because that's more fun for me. I like taking the pictures, I like being in the moment, I like creating the art. Having to sit there in the darkroom, so to speak, isn't as much fun to me as the moment of taking the photograph. I'm more of a photographer than a graphic artist, so I'd rather live in the real moment. So I adjust things like contrast, saturation, making sure my focus is spot on, cleaning up anything that I wouldn't want there. So if it's a product of, if I'm shooting burgers for McDonald's and there's dust on the background, I would just get rid of things that aren't meant to be there. A French fry out of place or a smudge on the cup. But as you'll see in some of the product photos, I try to get it as right in camera. So if it's a pair of glasses, I'd rather clean them off in person than figure out how to clean the lenses off in Photoshop. So the family, the first photo that I showed with that family, would have been much better to figure out how to light that and photograph it better in camera than recreate a sky. So here's another behind the scenes. You can see better now. This is a big white board here called a V-flat. It's just a giant reflector. So my light's pointing into that. Here's a direct light source. An indirect light source. That's a little bit of my setup. So this is what you could do if you want to spend a lot of time and money and creating a professional studio setup. But you don't have to do that. You can take great photos with your iPhone and a window. Rossi left. This was the fashion portion for her. So this is good lighting without Pro Gear. I recommend getting near a window as close as possible. Same light source. Do not mix your light if you can help it. And you can find inexpensive light kits on Amazon or thrift stores. My boss, Todd, found me a light kit to use here for the CAC at Goodwill for $25. Originally $250 on Amazon, completely unopened. We got it for 25 bucks. You can find cheap stuff of good quality. You can also use the sun, completely free. Find a window. This woman is standing in a window frame. I think she looks great. If you didn't know this was a window, if I hadn't have told you, you might have thought it was a softbox, might have just thought, who knows? But really wonderful light. You can see her clothing, makeup, every aspect of it, the texture of things. So I think the lighting is doing what we want it to do. Here are a few more window light photographs that are just showing off different elements. This was about the clothing that this woman sells. These images are taken with window light. I just moved a table in front of that window, and you can notice how the light is really accentuating the form of the bottle, and it's following the shape and contours, and that's what we want. To me, this is good lighting. It's showing off color and shape, and I feel like I could just pick this up and grab it. It really adds a three-dimensionality to our photographs too. And while this is not on a white backdrop, I can break my own rules. I've tried to minimize the distractions by having a selective focus. So this is in focus and that's not. And also by something called depth of field, which I'll talk a little bit about. But it's basically the area in a photograph that is the focused part. And you can tell this is in focus and that's not. And that's intentional, because I don't want you worrying about the jeans on the shelf back there. I want you worrying about instant age rewind eraser treatment makeup. Here's a little bit of mixing light sources and me trying to adapt to that situation. So as you can see in this photograph, I have lights in this room, and I used a flash on each of these mannequins. Without the flash, it would have looked very dark, and it would not have been as lit up from top to bottom as we see here. So these lights in this store are one color of light, and the light on my flash is a different color. So I put a gel on that light to change the color of it to try to match this interior light so that it looks like these lights are doing this work and that they look like the same color so that it's harder for the viewer to think, oh, that looks like it's a different color light, or that looks like it's not intentional. So you could just look at this and think, oh, that's how it looks when you walked in the store. I look at this and think, okay, I knew what I did. I knew I set up a light to light these up because it needed more to represent that. So this is an example of me mixing light sources and it kind of being a little successful. But I noticed that this looks a little bit bluer to me than that does. So I feel like I mixed it a little bit better on that one than I did on this one. So,
Looks like the same thing.
well, this is the same sweater. I just added a second mannequin to that.
What's that stuff around their neck?
This looks like a hood. I think that's just part of a hood. That's part of the garment. Up here? Yeah, that's just the mannequin. It looks kind of like a lipstick, doesn't it? A little bit. Good composition. Composition, the root word being composed. How do we compose our photograph? It's about your art. So if we imagine these as pieces of art that we made, nothing is competing for that. I don't see a kitty paw. I don't see a coffee cup that I don't want. I don't see carpet. I don't see a Harley Davidson in the background because I didn't just lean this up against my garage or something. I was intentional about the composition. I only want you to see the things in the scene that I want. If you imagine this as a blank canvas that you're about to paint on, be very intentional with what you put in the frame. Try not to have anything distracting. If you can get a white backdrop or something very clean, like a blank wall that you could lean your art up against, just being very intentional about the things in the frame, like you would be with what comprises your art to begin with. Another big important thing is to fill your frame. If this was our canvas, we probably wouldn't paint the whole picture down here. We'd probably use the entire canvas to paint our picture. And the same goes for our camera and its sensor. Your camera has a sensor which takes pictures and can represent that image. Use all of it. Use all of that canvas. Get as close to your subject as you can and fill the frame to show off all that detail. Not doing so is sort of taking away from the ability of that camera and of your art to begin with. Does that make sense? Do we have any questions? Again, I can talk about this forever. This is a Pandora's box. I don't even have to take a breath. I love photography. So please stop me if you have questions. Yes?
How long you doing photography?
I got up about 8 o'clock today, so I've been doing, I'm just kidding. 15 plus years. I got my first camera when I was 15 years old, and I'm 39 now. So that's 24 years-ish that I've been taking pictures. Professionally, probably closer to 20 years that I've been taking pictures. You did? What was it, graduation or prom or what?
For her couple picture.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Was it good?
Yeah.
You liked it?
Yeah.
What was your favorite part? The lighting or the people or the background or what?
The background is very good.
I love it.
The sun and the sky is very bright.
Now, what camera did you use? Can I ask you?
I use a phone camera.
They are amazing nowadays, aren't they? Did you try portrait mode?
Yes.
That's what I'm going to talk about, portrait mode. It's really helpful, especially if you're using your phone versus like a DSLR, like an expensive camera. I mean, think about it though. The phones today are $1,000. You can get a camera for the same price,
Yeah.
And I can't call anybody from my camera.
Enjoy one day. He can zoom in, zoom out.
Yes, ma'am.
That's so cool.
It is very cool, and it's very helpful too. Just real quick on composition. These are examples. So I worked for a gift box company. This company was called Sweet Whistle. She was a woman who wanted to sell gift boxes for different occasions to higher end clients. And I was hired to photograph the elements of these gift boxes. And you'll see lots of these photos because I worked for them for several years, and it was a lot of fun. And these are called lay flats. This is where we lay everything flat and try to get a cool image of things. So I just loved the composition of these images. I felt like every item in here was well represented. I felt like the color and the lighting showed versatility. We have different reflectivity of objects, different colors and contrasts. And to me, I just liked the harmony of these images. And good composition has a certain harmony to it. You know, we know what we like and we know what we don't like, and it's often very hard to distinguish that. But these jumped out at me, and I like them. Hopefully you do too. But good composition will reveal itself to you. You'll do something and you're like, I don't like that. I don't like that. And you just keep changing it until you find it and that you like it. Now, when photographing our art, maybe we want to do a shot where we have everything in it, right? But then maybe we want to do individual photographs of each of those things as well, and that's wise to do. But you know, hopefully these photos give you a little bit of inspiration into harmonious composition. Good focus is important, clearly. Sorry, I had to. One of the most important things to get good focus is to steady your camera. You know, if we're just holding our camera and we're rocking back and forth, there's a good chance that the camera's going to have some movement in it. So standing very still and widening our stance and becoming a human tripod is a very good thing. Or using a tripod if we can. There's a little tripod over here with a cell phone on it right now. You can find mounts that will steady your even your cell phone cameras or even, you know, your very big cameras. What they are doing is steadying the camera so that when you take a photograph, it's clear because it's not moving. Then it's up to you to focus on the subject. And our cell phones have some really great features. The iPhone has a macro mode. Macro means close up. And the iPhone also has portrait mode, which is helping us. You've seen on there, if you've used portrait mode, you've been able to just adjust the f-stop, which is a simplified term for a fancy word called aperture, which helps us change our depth of field or our focus in the photograph. And I can go into great detail about all these things, but this is kind of like the very granular, nerdy part of photography, and makes me very happy, but I can lose some people, I get it. Okay, so here are some screenshots of an interface on an iPhone. The one on the left being the macro mode. I know that it was activated because I see that little flower in the bottom left corner there. When you are focusing your subject and you get close enough to it, iPhone now in their software automatically switches to macro mode, which is contoured to help you take better close-up photos or photos of small things to make them appear bigger. When you tap on your subject, you get this little box that helps you focus on things. If you don't tap on a subject in a photograph, the iPhone will automatically try to automatically focus on something. If you tap on it, you're telling it what to focus on. And that selective focus is important because we're trying to have a sharp image of what we want to be sharp. What I wanted sharp in the image on the left was the Coke can, not so much anything else. However, I'm not in portrait mode, so our camera kind of defaults on, let's put everything in focus. Portrait mode allows us to have this selective focus with a very, what's called shallow depth of field, a small amount of the photograph that's in sharp focus. So the things behind it and in front of it are softer because we are in portrait mode, but what it's really doing is giving the effect of a very wide aperture, a shallow depth of field, a very small area that's in acceptable focus. So it can be very interesting and helpful when we have a distracting background to be able to limit those items in the background so our focus is on their subject, or if we have a plain background, more of a seamless white, and we use that macro mode and everything is sharp, that's also a very becoming feature. Yes. So thinking about focus, we want small things to be sharp and to be large and to have focus from top to bottom and left to right. We want large items to be sharp from top to bottom and left to right. So something on the left, I would use a macro mode or close-up mode, or if I was using my professional equipment, I have a lens that can focus very close up to an object, much like the image on the left here. We're much closer to that object than we are in this one, and we can tell that because of how much larger and wider and more bulbous this can looks, whereas on this image I'm further away. But I needed to be further away in this image of the purse or the bag to be able to show it off, and my lighting to show the detail of the texture of this bag and the different features from zippers and straps. So I think that photograph does all of those things and shows most features. If I would change something, I might turn this around to see whatever design of the buckles on the other side. So another example of a bad photograph, things I would change. Jumping on to the next and the last of our 4 things that make good photographs. Good color and good tone. Man, I can really talk. Representation matters. There's a tool called a color checker. There is a feature called auto white balance and same light source. Try not to mix it. And that'll help you achieve good color and good tone. This thing right here is a color checker. It's a little card that I keep with me in my photography bag, and I take a picture of it before I start taking a picture of my stuff. Under the lighting conditions, because then when I take this into my editing software, I can look at those colors and adjust the white balance, adjust the color of light in my image to a standard. So if I take a picture of this every time, this little thing called a color checker, then my colors will be standard and will be consistent throughout my photography shooting. So I recommend getting one of these. They're not too expensive, especially today. You could probably just print one out online, honestly. But it's a very helpful tool if you're doing any serious photography. It helps you get accurate color. Helps me make sure that my fuchsias are fuchsias and my grays are grays, and that my light is not too bright to wash out the color in an object or an image. So those are things you want to pay attention to as well when you're photographing your art. Yes, a lot of light will help minimize shadows, but it might wash out the color. So by photographing something like this and then looking at here, we can see if our color is getting washed out because the light's too bright. Okay, I put this in here to show you that I actually did photograph a real painting once, not just pieces and places and things. So here's a painting, not mine, photographed a long time ago, but I see all of the edges of the frame. I see the colors in here. I don't see any glaring reflections on the glass in the frame that's distracting me from anything. So I would say this is a successful photo of my art. Yes?
Keep from getting glares in the glass when you're doing something that's already framed.
A lot of times the reflections that we see in the glares are because of the angle the light is at. So I think about someone like you and I, if we're getting our picture taken, we're wearing glasses. So a lot of times in our glasses you see the reflection of the light or on the frame. It's the angle that the light's coming in and the angle that we're standing at photographing the object. So if we change our angle a little bit, whether tilting or side to side, or we change the angle of the light a little bit, we can't change the angle of the sun, right? But we could change the way we're looking at it, and then that would minimize those reflections. If I can't move the object or tilt it or pan it in a different direction to change the way the light's reflecting off of it, I would change my point of view, left or right, up and down, until I can still see all of the image that I want to see, but the reflection's gone. So it's just really about changing your point of view a little bit. Like for instance, in this image, I brought this up because there's a lot going on. It's a big image. This was her cover photo for a website for that gift box company, but I've got different textures and colors and a lot going on here. So this is just a book, but it's got a reflective gold material. Here's a glass with that same reflective gold material, but it's also transparent. I've got a human hand in here. A lot going on that I want to represent and that I have to pay attention to. As we see here, it got very bright and we're almost losing the detail. Here, again, it's a little challenging to read all of the letters, but I needed it to be bright enough to show detail in very dark spots, but not be overpowering. If you look at these two glasses, they're each an inch away from each other, each lit by the same light source, but if you look at the angle of them, they're a little bit different, and that is what changes the reflection on them. So the one Cheers on the bottom has that very long line going down at reflection right here. The glass at the top does not. So if you just look at that as an illustration of that example where we're just changing the angle of the object relative to the light, that changes the reflections. It's nerdy, isn't it? But I love this stuff. Okay, we're there. We're there, man. Wrap it all up. Those big 4 things: lighting, composition, focus, and color. If you try to be intentional with those things, you will take instantly better photographs. Photography, like everything else we do here, is an art form. However much attention and desire and effort we put into it, we will see that returned back to us. You get better with practice. Just like I tell my kids, the more you do it, the better you get. Whether that's emptying the dishwasher or taking pictures. Simplify your process as best you can. Simplify your background. Simplify your light source, right? Go out to Walmart, buy one piece of foam core, one piece of foam board, you got a new background. Buy a second one, now you have a reflector. Sit in front of your window, now you have a light source. Simplify it as best you can. If you want to go out there and buy hundreds of dollars worth of photography equipment and $50 paintbrushes like I did, do it. But you don't have to. Be intentional. I think that's one of the most important things. Rather than just pointing your phone at an object or pointing your camera at an object and hoping for a good picture, be intentional. Look inside the four walls. Make sure everything in that frame is chosen. Make sure that your light source is what you want it to be and it's lighting up your object the way you'd like it to. And if not, change something. And if you can't figure it out, ask me for help anytime. Thanks for listening. Does anybody have any questions?
Get your equipment from?
So there's a really good store here in Columbus called Midwest Photo Exchange. It's right off of Route 71, I think at the something exit with a W, Weber, thank you. The Weber exit. It's an awesome camera store. And when you go in there, they're super friendly to you. They also have free stickers, like photography stickers, really cute. They're very friendly, they're very helpful. If you just went in there and said, hey, I just listened to this really smart guy talk about photography today and I want to buy a camera, they'll help you. Or if you go in there with a very specific question and say, I need a 6-inch reflector for this product photography shoot that I'm doing, they'll know exactly what you mean. That's where I would recommend going if you want to have a person help you in person. If you just kind of want to look online at different things, you can always shop on Amazon, or you could go to a photo store called Adorama. Is another one. That's a good online photo store. You can buy any of these things. Yeah. Anyone else have a question? It's okay if you don't. I know this is...
Outside work, do you ever use like different colored lenses? Or?
Oh, yeah. You know, I like to, when I'm outside of work and I'm hiking or I'm walking with my dog, I typically only have my phone with me because I'm always just like afraid of breaking my gear, just doing something fun. But I love to take a lot of like nature photographs or photos of my dog just doing cute stuff. And I do try to do like different modes on my camera, whether it's portrait mode or like long exposures, or if I'm shooting with video, changing the frame rates and things, just to like mess around with the different settings. Yes?
I do have a question, but it might be a weird one. But have you ever, like with your photography pictures, have you ever went to like a puzzle printer to place and turn your artwork into puzzles, or?
Wow, that is a great idea. I haven't turned it into a puzzle. When I had my photography business running full time, I had a website where all of my photographs were, and you could buy photo gifts from that website, like a calendar, or you could get a canvas print, or you could even make a keychain or a coaster. And now that I think about it, I don't think a puzzle was ever one of the gifts that we offered, and that would have been really cool.
Just asking because before my grandma passed away, I used to help my grandma put puzzles together, and I know a little bit about photography, but I don't know like a whole much about it. But I noticed how people like putting puzzles together, so that's why I was asking.
That is so fun and a beautiful memory, and I'm glad you shared that with me. And I think that's a great example of how we all get interested in photography for different reasons, and maybe there's someone special in our life that introduced us to that. My grandfather was the one who introduced me to photography, and it's called getting bit by the shutterbug. And if I got to put together puzzles with him, I probably would have felt the same way that you did. As it stands, when my grandfather passed away, I inherited his film camera, and it was just a really wonderful heirloom to have that reminds me of him. So much like when you're putting puzzles together, might remind you of that time. So thank you for sharing that.
Just a random thing that came to my my and
I love that.
so
I like that both of our grandfathers helped us with photography. What's your question, love? Yes. In our Ohio State sweater, you, huh?
Oh, me. Like, can you take videos of those pictures too?
I have. I've taken some videos. You know, I try not to do both at the same time. I try to either be there to take videos or be there to take pictures because it's hard to do. So, but yeah, I think I still like pictures more than video because you really have to be attentive to the moment. In video, you're capturing all of it, and you can edit out what you don't want to see a lot of times. But in photography, for me, I had to be ready for the moment, and I had to be ready before the moment, and I had to know what to do when the moment came. And it's a bit of luck, too. There's a bit of luck when you capture the right moment. It's luck matched with skill and experience. And I think that's why I really like photography, because to capture a really good moment in photography means that you were ready and you did all the things at the right time and you got a little lucky too. Yes?
When it comes to social media, would you recommend watermarking everything, or is it just personal, or is it really not that big of a deal?
Well, that's a great question. Social media itself, I mean, I think about the format under which folks are looking at my images, and most times it's a 6-inch screen and it's a 2-inch photograph, and I watermark my images so that people can't copy them and take them and then not accredit it to me, right? So I would watermark an image of a wedding couple because I want them to buy a print to put on their wall or something like that. If it's on social media, if I would watermark that if I wanted it to be, when it's shared, to have attribution back to me. So you can, if it's your preference, if you feel like people are sharing your work and not representing you because of it. You take great photos of fashion and clothing, and you found your images on somebody else's website, but they're not attributing them to you. That would be an indication to me that, you know, someone's stealing my work, so to speak. So I would absolutely watermark them. I haven't so much anymore with my artwork versus like portrait things. So for portraits and weddings and things, people screenshot it and then it's their background on their phone. I would probably watermark that because I want them to think of me or my photography business every time they look at that image. If I'm, you know, it's a product, it's a thing, it's an image that I've made. When I'm posting that, I may not put that watermark on there because I don't want it to detract from that image itself. So I guess it depends for me on the platform. And how large that image will really be, because smaller images are harder to steal. And you know, like for instance, on this image here of me in the beginning, it's very pixelated. So like, it's not like somebody can take this and then like make a great print out of it and, you know, do anything with this. So it was a very small, you know, this was formatted and sized for social media and the web and like a 2-inch screen. So as we get it blown up, it looks pixelated. And so the quality of that image is like, okay, if someone's gonna steal it, I'm not really worried. Yeah, long answer, I stopped doing it.
What is the process of watermarking? I'm quite a novice.
Oh, well, a watermark is just, it's kind of like putting a stamp on your image that then makes it harder to appropriate and steal. If you've, I'm trying to think when my children get their school pictures taken, and then that envelope comes back to our house. It'll be a proof, and it'll have life touch, life touch, life touch, life touch written all over it. That's a watermark.
In your own studio?
Yeah, you do it through an editing software. I mean, if you're printing photos from film, you're probably going to be doing that by hand. I don't have any of that mechanism. But all digital photographs is very easy to apply a watermark from a software. And it's really just to deter people from stealing your art and not attributing it to you. To follow up with that question, I haven't been a full-time practicing photographer in over 10 years. If I was still doing this full-time, I probably would continue to watermark with that type of mentality. But where I am today, I'm a little more laissez-faire with, if someone takes my art, they take my art. It's meant to be shared, you know, and most times they've hired me prior to doing it anyway, so I'm not really that concerned. But when I did share my work as a full-time practicing professional photographer, I almost always had a watermark. Heck, I remember this. I'm sorry. I just remembered a funny conversation or a funny time when I was starting out in photography. And when you're starting out, you photograph a lot of friends and family and try to, build your portfolio that way. I watermarked family photos when I shared them on Facebook. And my cousin mentioned that, like, man, he even watermarked family photos of us at Christmas time. But it's just because I was learning about the business and things. So, like, that would be a kind of a funny anecdote where you don't need to watermark everything. If someone's going to steal my family photo, what are they really doing with it? But in professional pursuits, you do want to protect your intellectual property. And watermarks help to do that because it deters people from then taking that picture, making a print of it, putting it on their wall, and not paying you for it. If they wanted that picture, they'll pay you, and then you get the print without the watermark on it. But
You referred to that blue sky earlier.
Yes.
Tell us about it again.
So this photograph didn't have a sky behind it. It was just purely white because the camera had to expose for the subjects, which were much less bright than the sky behind it. So in Photoshop, I took another image where I successfully captured a blue sky with clouds, and then I laid it underneath and then put the photograph of the folks on top of it, and then did in Photoshop what's called a mask, which is telling the photo, show part of it, but don't show all of it. And then basically you're allowing two photos to kind of show each other, show the desirable parts at once. So there's a blue sky and a family, and they're laying on top of one another, even though this is not the same one image. So
Beautiful.
that's a heavier lift in Photoshop, to that lady's point earlier, that I don't want to do. So I would rather get it right in camera. I'd rather take a photograph that looks like this than spend 4 hours after the fact trying to make a photograph that looks like this. It's not a good use of my time. But I was starting out, I didn't know any better, and it's not a mistake, it's an experience, it's a lesson, and I learned it. I really thank you all for coming. Yes?
That one, it looked like there was two rings there.
Two rings?
One side.
On this photograph?
Not that one.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
Right there.
Mm-hmm. This one?
No, this one.
I think that's actually one piece of jewelry. I think it's a ring. It's been a long time since I photographed this one, but it looks like I think it's one ring. It could even be a bracelet, but yes, it's a very reflective, very detailed piece of jewelry, isn't it? Very nice.
Matthew, Rhein.